Welcome to the Go Time Podcast. Go Time Podcast. With your host, Todd Martin.
Welcome to the Go Time Podcast. Christiana. Do you even go by Christiana now?
I do not go
Just
by Christiana.
Kris.
Just Kris.
Oh, so if I call you Christiana, everybody's going to have to go, oh, so that's the same person, right?
I have to go by it like officially occasionally, but...
Kris Rugloski.
It's Rugloski.
Rugloski. I say everybody's name wrong. I can't pronounce anything.
Most people say my name wrong, so you're not the only one.
So this is kind of a treat. This is kind of fun because for all of the Spartan racers out there, or the
OCR, obstacle course racing.
Obstacle course racing, they all know you as Kris and the smiling competitor. But I know you as an 18-year-old little girl that would saddle my horses for me and wash my horses. So this is like kind of a crazy different deal to see you kind of grow through all of what you've done. So tell me, I guess start it off and tell me a little bit about like once you left here and weren't saddling horses for me and washing horses for me anymore, and what got you into doing the obstacle course racing?
Yeah. Horses and working at horse barns, that was kind of my introduction into like active anything. I grew up you knew me growing up. I was kind of like the whole homekeeping, the goal was to kind of get married, start a family. Horses was kind of my introduction into like, not so much getting out of that, but kind of opening my horizons on like there are other options. So after, I was, started getting involved with them here. I actually moved out to the East Coast, I guess 2017, following the horse dream, because the horses that was what I was interested in. I was going to do English. I'd kind of gotten into some of the English side of things and eventing, 3-day eventing, just like the kind of like the most I guess it's like the most broad area of English on the English side of writing. Right. Anyway, so I moved out there. It was going to be like a summer job, and somebody from back here had basically said, like, you have a lot of potential. You could do really well in this. They'd seen me riding a horse and said I had really good balance, and like a natural balance that a lot of people like can't even learn. Right. It was one of those like crazy, like, I don't know, somebody like saw that potential in me. So going out east, like I've never really wanted to go out east, but that was kind of my like, well, if like there's a chance, like let's explore it. Probably, I guess it was like 6 months before I moved, I had tried a Spartan race, and I tried it because a lot of my friends were doing it. Everybody said it was really challenging, it was really hard, and I had done it, and I didn't know there was a competitive side to it, but it was just one of those like physically fit, like I can kind of take on anything. So I went and did it and was like, it's kind of a joke, but whatever. But they have 3 different distances. So when I moved out east, there's a lot more races like within a close radius of, it's just all more bunched up out there. So I was like, I'll get the other 2 distances while I'm out there. So
what was your first distance?
The first one was one of their longer distances, which is like a half marathon trail running with obstacles. So They have up to like 30 obstacles on that one typically. And I was like, this isn't that hard. It was fun. I was like, this is like, playing outside. And
so how'd you do your first one?
Terrible. I went, I had no idea there was the competitive wave. Like there's a competitive kind of elite side of it. So I just went, you have the competitive elite side, and then you have people that just do this as like, just lost 30 pounds. I'm going to go do something crazy, or just started running, So I did that one, and I found it, it was enjoyable, but it was in the middle of the day. It was hot. Everybody was walking. And I was like, I kind of almost felt like it was more for people that are trying to challenge themselves to do something like out of the ordinary. And to me, like it's just fun. Like it's not a huge challenge. Like I didn't feel super accomplished when I finished it. It's just like, that was fun. Anyways, out east, I did their shortest distance. It was like a 3-mile. And when I did that one, I wasn't really running or anything. I still just wanted to like kind of try it, but I decided like, I'm going to try to like go fast. And, so I asked to go in a morning wave. I I was like volunteering in exchange for races. But I went in a morning wave and I tried to like run fast, and I got the fastest time for those open waivers. So in the non-competitive side of things, I got the fastest time, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, it was fun doing it fast. Like, it added that challenge that the first one didn't have. So after that one, I finished working for that summer, and kind of through that summer kind of realized like there's not really the opportunity I thought there was in this horse world, especially in the English world. I found out like you have to have a lot of money. You pretty much have to have a background in it. Like it was hard to try to come into it as a young adult without the family, years of horse riding experience, and just kind of some experiences. I was like, you know what, this like isn't for me. Like, it is possible, but I was like, I don't think I'm that invested in it. Like, it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of money, and kind of through finding this running thing, I was like, kind of rather do this. So I went ahead and the races that I found out, they were actually just up in Canada. It's probably like a 7-hour drive, but I drove up to Canada and was going to do 2 races up there. So I was going to finish out that third distance, but they had that weekend they were running like all 3 distances. So I started on Saturday with, again, that longest distance, but this one with now like the competitive idea of like, I'm going to try to run fast. So I ran it sort of fast, tried to keep up with like the front pack. I was running in the very first wave, which is the elite wave. And I ended up coming in 3rd at that race. So I came across in 3rd. I had met some people, a group of people that run together in Canada. I still had no idea what I was doing, but I came across in 3rd. They were all excited. They were like,
how much were you training?
Like a plaque.
Were you trained? Did you have time to train?
Riding. I mean, I rode all summer.
You were riding, but you weren't like.
I had plans to run that summer, but I was not a runner. So they actually, on the property where we would ride the horses, and they had the whole cross country jumps and everything. The local cross country team they had a cross country meet out there, and they'd set up a 3-mile cross country course. So I was kind of like, the only running I did that summer was I went and I was like, I know this is marked out 3 miles. So I ran the 3 miles. It took me about, 30 minutes. So I was like, okay, that's a good 30-minute run. I did that a couple times, but I think just by, riding, working, cleaning stalls, all that kind of stuff. Like, I was some level of
active.
Fit. Yeah, active. So, but I do, on that first race, I would get tired, and I didn't have that like endurance. I didn't have that idea of like, you keep going. So I remember walking a lot. I would definitely like take walking breaks. I'm sure when I was running pretty fast-ish. Yeah. And then I'd like get tired, and I'd walk for a bit until I like, either saw somebody on a switchback, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start running again, So, and the interesting thing with Spartan races is it's trail running, but it's also there's obstacles. And if you fail an obstacle, there's the penalty. You have to do 30 burpees. So motivator. I think that also helped me do better, because these obstacles, like, they're challenging, they're slightly challenging, but they're nothing super complicated. And I think I actually did fail one, but it was one of those things like, even though I wasn't running super fast, I was completing the obstacles, which kind of gave an edge to people who may not be as good at obstacles. Have to stop and do the 30 burpees, but I was able to go right through. Anyway, so I hit the podium. I got 3rd place, and the people in Canada that I'd met, they were like, this is like a big deal. They were like, you get like a cash prize for winning 3rd place. And like, they were more excited about it than I was, because I was kind of like, I know a podium is cool, right, but didn't really know than that. So I hit that first podium. The next day I came back and ran like their middle distance, which is basically like a 10K, about 6 miles. And I got like 5th in that one. I was like tired. I still, didn't know what I was in. Anyway, so that was kind of my first introduction to like, like the competitive side of things. Yeah. The following weekend I went back. I'd found, 2 more races in Vermont that I went and did. I think I, got top 10, but this was like in a mountain. It had like at a ski resort. So you're like going straight up these, and I had never done any kind of running and that kind of stuff. So I think I got
That's a different conditioning too, huh?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was just totally different.
Had no idea about that either?
Yeah. Nothing. I didn't even know, like, it's crazy looking back now. Like everybody knows you have to train hills, you know, running in, but I like never, like I was not a runner. I didn't have a runner's mind, like
right.
None of that. So I was just like, I saw, oh, Vermont. I was like, I'll sign up for those races. I'll do those races. And then as it was coming up, Vermont is where like the founder of Spartan lives. And that's where like they say this mountain where they have, you know, this resort where they have this race at, it's like one of the worst ones. There's one point where you're heading straight up. I don't know if it's right underneath the ski lift or something, but they call it like a death march because you're going straight up for like a mile and a half. Oh. And it's just, I mean, it's steep, you know, so all this stuff. And I hit it. And I'm like, it's really steep. I'm almost like crawling hands and knees, but, you know, just had no reference for like, obviously I knew it was harder than the one I'd done in Canada, but just like, well, this is fun. Like, let's try this. That was kind of my introduction to running, racing.
So did somebody like was there somebody that kind of like spent some time with you and talked or like kind of started explaining to you like training regimens and trying to get you into it?
That didn't happen for a little while. Yeah. I actually, so that was out east. I came back and I was planning to move to Colorado just because I wanted to go out west. Like I had always wanted to go more west than east. But I came back through meeting people at those races. I had heard about this ultra they do. Their Spartan Ultra, and it's the beast distance, which is, you know, about half a marathon. It's about like 13 miles. And you run the course once and then you run it again. And they call it their like ultra beast. An ultra marathon is anything that's over a marathon distance. So there's races 26 plus miles. So it's their ultra marathon. And I was like, that's crazy. Like they say it's like 26 to 30 miles. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Who does that? Who runs that? But then I had the thought like, it's like a 20-hour time cap. And I was like, I could walk that. Like if I walked that, I could still complete it. And that's I think that's what helps people get into the Spartan world and all that is really like anybody that completes it gets a medal. Like it's a big deal to just complete it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? That sounds cool. Like why not do it? So there's one back here in Texas. And so I came back to Texas like beginning of October and spent some time with my parents. And I was going to like be here for a month, do that race, and then move out to Colorado. So I went and did that race, and that I was not at all prepared for that. But it's through that race, I ended up meeting a lot of people that were more in tune with like the training side. Ended up getting introduced to where I ended up moving out to Houston through a series of events and got involved with the gym there that now I've been with for like 3 years. And they kind of introduced me to the whole side of like training, running.
The whole science behind all of it?
Yeah, the whole science behind racing and trying to win. So that was it.
So how much of a struggle was that first time when you went and did that, the first Ultra Beast?
The Ultra Beast was it was a huge accomplishment. I felt very accomplished to finish it, but it humbled me like none of the others had.
Yeah.
And looking back, like I think that kind of gave me it got me, I guess, like interested in those long distances because they take something out of you on a whole different level than the shorter distance do. But it was basically, this one was a 15-mile loop and you do it twice. So it was right at 30 miles.
Wow.
I did, starting out, you start in the morning. This was it was very cold. So at the end of October, weather in Texas can kind of be all over. Mm-hmm. When I'd done that same Spartan, at that same location the year before, it had been a really hot year. And so hot, everybody was having problems with hydration and cramping and all that stuff. So this year that I did the first Ultra, it was very cold. And I did not know it was going to be cold until like that week they said like this cold front's going to blow in. So the week of this race, I had no idea what to expect. I went to the store, I bought leggings. I'd never really like worn running leggings, but I was like, I should probably wear something other than shorts. So I bought leggings, and when we started, it was like, I guess, high 20s. It was below freezing when we started at like 6 a.m. in the morning. All of this was new. Like not only, anyway, so we started out but I know like, you know, once you get moving, you warm up.
Yeah.
So within the first couple miles, they have a dunk wall, and their dunk wall is like this pit of water, and they have like inflatable wall basically that is at the water level. So you have to go completely underwater. And it was one of those like, all right, we're, you know, just warmed up 3 miles into this.
Oh my God.
Just kind of warmed up. We went through this dunk wall, and I remember coming out of there. It was terrible. I had like frost on my shoelaces. My hair was like frozen solid. Like it was like not frozen solid, but stiff. Yeah. So it was like full of ice.
Oh my God.
But that first lap, I was like, let's go. Like, that's right. I knew I had to run to warm up, you know. And I actually stayed in first place that whole first lap because I was running. I had done a couple races by now. Like I was familiar with the obstacles and stuff. At the halfway mark, they have like a transition area. And I'd kind of, you know, asked questions in Facebook groups and stuff. So I knew like people were like, have something to change into, have food there. You know, you can drop off your headlamp, your jacket or whatever from the morning. So I came into that transition and I was like, oh, that was fun. But the second place girl was right behind me. And I was kind of like, I knew I shouldn't be running in first anyways. But I was like, well, I'm feeling good. I'm running. She passed me up there. And as soon as I left that transition area to go on my second loop, my hip flexors like locked up. So my hip flexors, like right where my legs attached to my hips. And I started like, I couldn't move my legs without like pain in my hips. And I was like, this is going to suck. So I started out on that second lap, 15 miles, and everything hurt. Like I was just kind of like, I have to do this again. You know, it's one of those like that first lap, oh, this is fun. Like, and then you realize like, wait, you're only halfway. I have to do this all again. That lap was miserable. Like I remember there were multiple times where I was like, I just want to cry. Like, what am I doing out here? But I found I was like, through doing the other races, I found like one of the best ways to like pass the time, like have more fun is to like make friends out there, like talk to people, whatever. So I started doing that, and I like talking to people, and I realized if I like acted like I was happy, especially there were other people in the same boat as me that were tired doing this ultra beast, you know. So anytime I saw, you know, they have the little jerseys that you wear to distinguish between, because they're running, they start the ultra beast, then they start the regular beast. You know, so there's all kinds of people out there. So I started just talking to people and like trying to like, I guess kind of like distract from the pain. Yeah. I think the second place girl finished or passed me up at some point. I ended up finishing in third, like I think 30 minutes behind second place, but there just weren't a lot of people in the women's field. So I finished, I think I don't know, it took me 6.5, 7 hours to do the whole thing. And I finished and I was just like, I want to die. Like everything hurts, but I experienced that first high when you cross the finish line. You're like, I just did that. So, so it's one of those like, and I actually stayed and volunteered afterwards because I was kind of I've always been kind of low budget, and I would volunteer. If you volunteer a certain number of hours, you can get a race for free. So every race I would like volunteer. I'd use that code for the next race, volunteer, use the next code. So I had a volunteer shift when I finished. I finished around like noon or 1. I think I was supposed to start volunteering at like 3. I was supposed to volunteer from like 3 to 8. So had a little bit of time to like, hose off, change clothes. And then I had to volunteer the whole evening. And it hurt to walk. It hurt to stand. Everything hurt, and I was literally almost just like trying not to cry, but
almost
I was
as bad as the race.
So bad. Yes. And when I walked out to my car after that, I remember I opened the car door and I went to get in, and I couldn't lift my legs into the car. Like my hip flexors were just so shot. I had to lift my legs into the car. So that was it. It was one of those experiences. Like, what did I get myself into? It's
also one of those places where you probably found that you could.
Yes. Right? Yes. And that's why I've come back. It's so addicting. Putting yourself through that kind of pain, like choosing to. Mm-hmm. It sucks. It hurts. And then as soon as it's over, like you cross the finish line and it's like, I did that. Of course I was like, I will never do this again. That was the worst thing I've ever done. But give it a couple, this was end of October. couple months after that, I heard about a 50 miler, and I had the 50 mile was beginning of April. So it was, I guess, 5 months later. Is that almost 6 months later? I'd done that 30 miles and it sucked. But like you said, like I did it. And so when I heard about this 50 mile, and this was just trail, no obstacles, I was like, I've done 30 miles. What's 50?
30 miles
so
with
look
obstacles.
at me signing up for 50. Yeah, it's this neat balance of like, it's the hardest thing I had ever done. Like I had never felt that pain before. I had never put myself through something like that physically. But as soon as you finish, it's that like, it's the best feeling ever.
It does. It sets you at a place where there's very few that have pushed themselves past that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not even that. I think there's just something about having hit a spot that you didn't know was even doable, right? It almost seems like so insurmountable, right?
Yeah.
That just finishing it, and third place is like rock star too.
Yeah.
But that you accomplish it, that all of a sudden it opens up your mind to what is possible, right? All of a sudden you're like, I had no idea that was in me, right?
Yeah.
So I love that part, right? This all of a sudden finding out the possible is possible. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so that was your point.
That was it. Yeah.
Really?
That race is what changed, and it's been a process since then. But yeah, thinking back to that race like that, it's one of those, like, it changed everything, you know? Like, it was
so where does the Dwayne Johnson Titan deal come into there? Was that before or after?
That was after.
That was after.
So
how did that come about?
So that's another. So this was end of 2017. I found like, this is cool.
Yeah.
I kind of want to do this more. Early 2018, I moved out to south of Houston, and there is a gym there that got started through the owners did some Spartan races, or had heard about Spartan race, started training for it. Kind of this similar approach to me, where they came from not fitness and were like, this is cool. Takes a lot of work to get here. And so they started training, and he's basically, he and his friends started this gym, Grit Fitness, and they've changed so many people in that community through this concept of that obstacle course racing, doing something you thought you couldn't do and doing it. And once you do that, like you said, it's a mindset, like, what else can I do? So there's all kinds of, I guess, through that community of putting those intentional challenges into your life, overcoming them, and growing, like, as a person, as like in every area, it changes how you view every area of life.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I moved out there. I told the owners there, I was like, look, I just started doing these. I'm like not bad at them, but I know it's based on, like, it's just a talent thing. Like, I'm just happen to be good, but I want to be better. And I know I have to work to be better. So I started, the owner there, Kenny Stanford, really kind of, he was like, yeah, like, we can help you get there. Started, working with me, helping with, kind of trying to get me into training. It took me a while to, like, become an athlete, coming from a not athlete at all. And I think it was almost more difficult coming into it, like, well, I can already do it. Like, why do I need to work for it? Like, mentally, I know I do, but then I was like, physically, like, I can just kind of do it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the hardest ones. Like, it's harder, I think, for somebody, like, there's a saying in the in several industries, but it is in the horse industry sometimes too, is that I will outwork your talent, right? And that exists. You don't realize that it exists. When some people stand back and look at somebody and they go, and they're like, he's not that athletic, or he's not that great at it, but he's just lucky because he's doing this. And like, no, and luck had nothing to do with it. That guy was outworked your butt and still got further than what you did with your natural talent. Yeah. Right?
I read a book, even before this. I don't know what it's called. It might even be, I think it's called Hard Work Beats Talent. But something they said in there is hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard.
Yes.
And I knew, like, so I've carried that with me. Like, I have a lot of natural talent, and it's a struggle to work hard. And reading this book was so eye-opening for me, where I was like, it's like all this talent is literally useless in the grander scheme of things if you don't work hard, because literally anybody can outwork talent. Like you can work hard and get a lot more places than you can just being talented.
There's something to be said about that. Like that, I think that's something that. So it was kind of the same thing. The reason why this is your kind of your path and stuff is so like it's fun for me to watch is because like I took my first riding lesson at 21. Yeah. Didn't know a right lead from a lead, nothing, right? At 21 years old. So it wasn't like I had spent my life riding horses and all of a sudden decided, I'm going to go ahead and become a pro. Like you had to, I did, I had talent with it. I had talent, I had a way with horses and stuff, but all of a sudden I had to work through and put it together, right? Yeah. But all of a sudden I found a passion and almost for a good portion, I found an identity in it. Yeah. Right? Where I didn't know what my identity even was. Yeah. But all of a sudden I found it like so now it's not just Todd Martin. It's like he's a horse trainer. Yeah. All of a sudden I had like somebody called me something, right? Yeah. You're a horse trainer. Oh, yeah, I think I am, right? Yeah. And now you're a racer. Yeah, you're a runner. Oh, you are? Is that that smiling runner? Is that yeah? So now it's almost like so you get to find a little bit of identity with yourself, right? Yeah.
And I had struggled with that. I had tried with horses. I didn't really fit into the kind of the mold my parents had kind of like pushed me towards. I tried with the horses. So this was finally something where I was like, this is it. Like, and I still I still feel like, am I really a runner? And I'm like, I guess I am. I guess I am now.
I think you are, Christiane. Yeah. It's really cool, isn't it? Yeah. I think that's something that, so you're a ways off from this, but what happens with most parents, right, is, you try to, you can fall into the idea of finding your identity through your kids at times, right? Or you're trying so hard, and like I can imagine with your parents too, that, you're trying so hard to give your kids the knowledge that you have, right? And give you as much information and tell you. But the reality is, for any of our kids, right, that you kind of have to find that yourself, right? I had a guy tell me just the other day that you can't have a testimony without a test, right? And that's what you're getting.
Parents don't want to see their kids.
No, I don't want to see my kids struggle. Yeah. Right? I don't want to see my kids, have hard times and deal with that. Like, I just soon pick it up and take the burden and, do it. And I think we all do that as parents, right? Because you want so hard, you're trying to, no matter what it is, even if it's nothing more than just being successful, right? Yeah. Because success is based on, your own perception of what success is, right? You're successful, right? But if you did it by your bank account, you're probably not quite so successful yet, right? It's just because the deal that you've decided to do doesn't pay, like an NBA player, right? And that would be nice, wouldn't it? But because of that, you're finding that in what you're doing, and you're finding it through. Not that it's like, voila, I'm good at this and I'm just going to do this and good. Like you're having to struggle through it. Yeah. And that's where you grow. Yep. Right? Yeah. If it wasn't for the hard run, that first, ultra, that it was like, you found out you could push through.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? And it was one of those, like, the racing in general had some appeal, but it felt like I just didn't know where to go with it. Cause I was like, this is fun. It's not that hard. It's, like, I'm kind of good at it. But once I realized, like, this is an area, not that I was even, like, looking for an area to challenge myself in, but when I realized there's an area that I can challenge myself in, through that challenge, feel that reward, that accomplishment. Yes. That was what it was. And it took that ultra. And so even now, like, everything that I do a lot of the shorter distance. I've gotten a lot faster, competitive at a higher level, because those races I did, when I first started, there weren't a lot of top people there, so they weren't as competitive, all this kind of thing. I'm now, like, putting myself out with the top people and doing decently well at the short distance stuff, but I can't leave the ultras alone. Like, there's kind of this saying, like, with runners, that you peak like on your speed end of things in your, 20s, early 20s, and you don't peak endurance wise until 30s or even 40s. And so most people kind of like the established route is like run fast while you're young. When you start losing that, you can't keep that top end speed forever, or theoretically, like you do lose some capacity for that. Then you can start doing the longer stuff, but build up, get that speed, do the speed while you can. And I like tell myself that, like, I'm young, I need to like run fast, but something about like the challenge and the accomplishment of those longer distances, I just can't leave them alone. So
I would imagine that that would be a healthy way of doing it, right? Even though, I mean, I'm going to open the door so we can get a little air. Not that, like, I know you're like, now would be the time to be really competitive in the shorter distance, but sometimes just accomplishing, like running that longer distance, doubling the distance, makes the shorter seem even shorter, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you even a bigger perspective. So for me, with the horse deal, right?
Yeah.
Showing whenever I would push myself to local end. I was doing really well, right? But I could have stayed as big fish in a small pond, right?
Yeah.
But I pushed myself to run with the guys that were way ahead of me, or that had a lot more horse than I did, right?
Yeah.
And I would come in there with lesser horse, but I would push myself. But every time,
perspective.
yes, and every time I came back from one of those shows, I would come back with a whole new perspective. Like, I learned so much from losing at some of those, right?
Yeah.
That it gave me whenever I come home. It was, okay, so I would have never known what I was lacking or what I needed had I not put myself in those venues.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's, that part right there of realizing what's past it and what you were you may have had like a mental block at mile 11, you're crashing there, and then you crash at, mile 25 in a 30 mile. They're like, I can imagine, like, now the 11, you're like, coast, man. 11.
It's definitely, like, mentally, like, big picture, it's been huge. It's been a game changer.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, the pure physically, like, athletic development side of things, there's a little less of an advantage, because there is a value, they've kind of figured out how things work over the years.
Well, and I think that something that was really important on that is realizing that as soon as you start to get to a certain level, there's not a lot of difference between you and first place and third place. You girls are all really good at that point, right? It's any given day who's going to be first and who's going to be third, right? Yeah. But it's the mental part that gets you past that, right?
And that's, like, mentally, I enjoy where those longer races put me, and where I come back from it. And so, as much as, I mean, I've like chosen to kind of pursue the shorter thing more, I say that more seriously. I still do a lot of longer distance, but choosing to, like, I'm like, what, I do need to prioritize the shorter ones. And in speaking to, sponsors and coaches, I've told them, like, I'm focusing on the shorter ones, but I'm not giving up the longer ones. Like, I will still do them. I'm not really trying to be that competitive at them. I'm not competitive at them really yet, because there's a lot of growth that happens there. But I've told them, like, I do that for the experience. Like, I just enjoy it. Like, it's physically hard on me, but it is mentally so rewarding and so satisfying. And physically, I can handle it. And so I'm like, I can't give it up.
Yeah.
Like,
have you experienced anybody playing with the mental aspect and using it against you in the races?
Not especially. I think, nobody else has really done that to me. I guess now, like, hearing other people's talk, hearing what other people say, it could mentally get to me, but I still feel like it's something, like, nobody's actually directly applying that to me. Right.
But you could do it to yourself.
Yes. So I hear these things and I think like I could apply to myself, but I think I've definitely chosen to not let that get to me.
Yeah. But being aware of it, right, is really important too.
Yes.
There was a time frame in the triathlons
Yeah.
So when I was like 19 and I was in the military and I did my first mini triathlon, and I did it with my dad actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And he came up I was stationed up in Lubbock, and he came up and he ran a mini triathlon with me. And it was a pool swim.
Okay.
And so after we did the laps in the pool, right, I stuck around, hung out, and waited till my dad. He came like one of the last ones coming out of the pool, right?
Yeah.
And he came out, and then we had a bike, and it wasn't that far, just a mini.
18 or something?
Yeah, something like that. And then it was a run of 3 or something, like 3 mile run afterwards or something like that. And the old man almost caught me in the run because I hated running. I really like cycling a lot, right?
Yeah.
And he almost caught me in the run. It was a killer for me because I didn't the last thing I needed was my old man to come and catch me, right? But at that time, one of the greats was a guy named, I think it was Guy Allen, I think was his name, and he was a top triathlete, and David Scott was a top triathlete. So it was like way before you were born, right? And like a ways before you were born. And one of the so there's a documentary. It's written about it, and actually he's done some really good talks. His name Guy Allen has. I swear his name is Guy, but and he talks about how David Scott would crush him.
Yeah.
Right. And they're on the runs, and he would be ahead of him. Right. And he's doing it and whatever else. And it would just be a look that David would get, or it would be just a scoff whenever he would pass him or something. It would just totally crush him.
Yeah.
Right. And just, and his deal was, like, how do you beat a guy who actually like strains his rice to get all the carbs out or whatever it was that, he was trying to do. This guy was like, all about it. Right.
Yeah.
But the mental game was what kept him from being able to do it. And it's a really pretty cool talk, a pretty cool documentary that he talks about how he did it. And once he beat him, then it was on. Then the big deal, like David Scott beat him for like a series of like 3 to 5 years, and he just couldn't get past it. And all of a sudden, bam, he did it. And once he did it and he saw that it was obtainable, it was game on, right? Because then you couldn't get him because he knew that he could, right? Yeah. That's a big step.
Yeah.
But it's a big step. Like right now, most of those, since there's not a lot of money and it's not necessarily big, sponsors yet or whatever, that you're not seeing that cutthroat part, but that becomes part of it.
Yeah. Well, even with that, like I just this last weekend, I was in Georgia, and it was a like 6 mile race, and it was pretty close. There were like the top 3 of us were close for pretty much the entire race. I was leading it most of the time. But when we finished, the girl that had run right behind me for most of it, she made the comment about something like, you don't look back when you run. And I had heard this said once, and I thought through it because I'd heard it said once before, like, don't look back. And I've seen people, like little kids, when they look back at who's behind them, one, they slow down. And the person behind them gets in their head. And I had heard like, don't look behind you. I've since heard then like, no, it's fine to look back. Like you should know where you are in the field, whatever. But I have that like in my head, like don't look back. So I choose not to look back. And I realized like, it's not that I never look back, but I never look back when I think that the people behind me can see me looking back. And it's a mental game because if they see me looking back, they know now that I'm aware of them. And that gives them mental strength. Me seeing where they are only it's taken me back, like it's mentally taken me back. So I focus on what's ahead, and I realized I do it kind of for myself just to focus on what's ahead, and kind of for the person behind me to get in their head. Like I don't care that you're behind me, I don't care that you're close, I don't care if you're far. I'm doing my race, so it doesn't give them that mental like strength to know, oh, she knows I'm behind her. Like that gives them a mental
and it's such a small deal, right?
Yes.
It's such a small deal, and it is huge.
And I didn't realize how much, because I've had people look back at me, and I know that feeling of like, they know I'm here.
Gotcha.
They know I'm yes. And it's a mental win for the person behind me.
And I'm in your head.
I will look back. I will definitely look back to kind of see where I'm in the field, but I make sure it's like, if I'm jumping over a wall and I can like inconspicuously kind of take a glance back, or if I like make a turn or something like where I can kind of glance back and see, oh, there's nobody there, or see, oh, there she is, But I have it like, I try not to look back, and definitely if I know there's somebody close, I'm not looking back.
Yeah, almost best if somebody turns around and looks back at you and go, hey.
Yes. Hey, I see you.
Hey.
I see you.
That's good. Those are, I love that part, right? I love that part of competition that, and not like, oh, I'm going to go mind screw somebody on, what the deal is, but it's part of the game, right?
And I found too, I will say, like, with doing this race I did in Georgia, the weekend before that, I had done a race in Arkansas, and it was 95 miles in a weekend, which is
holy smackers,
more than what any of my competition in Georgia was running. And I found, like, I know what I'm capable, like, I have a certain level of confidence. I can let it get in my head. Like, I just ran 95 miles that last weekend. I'm probably not as fast as any of these girls here. Like, my legs are still recovering in some way. Like, these girls have been trained in speed.
I don't do 95 miles in my truck on a weekend. What are you doing?
That is the most classic response to, like, oh, I run 100 miles. I don't even like driving 100 miles.
Oh, man.
But I have found to not only, like, it builds my confidence, and again, it kind of plays mind games on them. When I come into a 6-mile race the next weekend, it's going to be fast, it's going to be quick. These girls are tuned in for the 6 miles. And I come in, I feel great. I feel, even if I am a little, like, I had, last year, I had a problem with, like, my Achilles. I went from a 100-mile race to, I guess it was what was it? It was like a half marathon trail distance, Spartan race. And I came into it, and that whole week I had been dealing with my Achilles being all swollen and lumpy and, like, couldn't run. Like, it was an issue. But I'd gone to the chiropractor, done the work, like, trying to fix it, taped it up, and I still came into that 13-mile race. Like, I'm set. We're all good. So even when I am dealing with stuff, but especially when I'm not, I come in and I'm 100% confident that I can take out anybody in this field. I've raced most of these ladies, like, and even if nobody, like, are you good? How are you feeling? Like, a lot of us will be like, you ready for today? The answer is always yes. Ready to race, ready to run, feel fantastic. Like, and it's, again, one of those, like, I found, like, it helps build my confidence, and it definitely doesn't give them any confidence because I ran 95 miles and I'm ready to go again, So it's one of those, like.
So what, so back to the Titan
Back
deal,
to the Titan games,
right?
yes.
So that has to give you a whole nother edge on being in front of people watching and having that pressure, because that's something completely different in competition.
Definitely. So after spending, so I'd had that big race, with this gym that I was involved in, again, with the whole building me as an athlete and as a person, somebody had mentioned, it was probably like April of that next year, I'd been, meeting people through here. I'd been doing some, like, smaller local races, doing pretty good, won some, placed in some, but they were, just smaller ones. Somebody had mentioned, or I'd seen even, like, The Rock is putting out this show, you can apply to get on it, and I was just like, I don't care, like, whatever. Somebody told me, though, that they had either emailed the casting director or something, and somehow they needed women. They didn't have enough women applying. So this friend of mine said, like, you should just apply. Like, they need women. They don't have enough women applying, so just apply. So I was like, sure, why not? So they had a deadline for submitting, like, your application, and I sent it in, like, the night before. I was just like, I'm just gonna fill this out. You're supposed to, like, when you apply to a TV show, you're supposed to have pretty much all of them have you send in, like, a 2 to 3 minute, like, video, kind of like who you are, just tell a little bit about you, because they're trying to cast for these shows and they want to know. Anyways, I was,
need some drama around it.
A lot of them want, like, your backstory. They want to know, So I filled out this, it's an extensive application with, all these questions, whatever. And then when it came to the movie clip, I was like, I don't have time to make anything. So I went through, like, the videos I had on my phone. I was nannying at the time. So I had a video of me, like, playing with the kids in the backyard and doing, like, handstand walks. I was like, that's cool. Like, that's a video of me doing something and, like, whatever. So that was, like, the little video I attached onto my application. I sent it in. I was like, whatever. Probably, like, 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from one of the casting directors, whatever. And they said, hey, came across your application. You're, like, exactly what we're looking for. I'm pretty sure you're exactly what we're looking for. We want, like, everyday people. but that want to challenge, athletic, everyday people. They didn't want the like professional athletes, the trainers, whatever. So they ended up like, I think to kind of, he was basically like, I'm going to like video call you and we'll basically put together a little introduction video so that he can present it to the actual casters, the people casting the show, whatever. So we had like this phone call. We just kind of talked about, I was kind of like, I started running last year. At this point, I'd done a 50 miler and I'd gone like 3rd place in that. Again, I completely died, but I did it. So I was kind of like, I ran a 50 miler. I do this running. I'm a nanny. Just kind of having fun with it. And they ended up accepting it. So then I got a call like, hey, they want you to be on the show, but, so it was like kind of the initial step. So that summer, probably like July, I guess, June, July, they were going to fly out. They had basically picked like 120 applicants and they flew them all out to California for this combine, to kind of like meet people. It's like a big TV show, So basically there were 5 different things they did. They were like, a strength, you had to do like a max deadlift. They wanted you to see you like running on a treadmill, just like your aerobic fitness. They had like a little monkey bars set, which I was like, I can do that, again, just kind of like, full body, or full, fitness. And then they had a little like obstacle agility course. You just kind of like agility pulls, some kind of heavy something, maybe a sled push. And then the 5th one was an interview where they sat you down and just kind of did an interview. I think it's because I'm sure trying to like figure out your personality. Like, are you a good TV personality, whatever. So I went out there, they flew me out there and here I was like, I hadn't even been running. I'd maybe been running for running. I'd been racing for about a year. I'd been training for about 6 months and they flew me out there and I got out there and I was like, this is a joke. Like everybody out there was super fit, super strong. The girl that I like rode on the shuttle from the airport to this hotel from, she can like deadlift 450 pounds. All these people like walking around super buff. And I was just like this little, I was 20 at the time. Like, just like, hey, yeah, I run a little bit.
I just started getting in shape.
It was crazy. And looking back now, it's even more crazy. And I got on. After the combine, like I did okay in some. Oh, another one they had was like a high jump, a long jump, a sprint. I had no concept of like sprints. Like it's like I can run, but that front end speed I just didn't have. I had never really done it. So they did all the little tests. I was like, this is fun. Like I was enjoying the experience. I was like, this is neat. And then they sent us all home and they're like, we'll call you in like 2 weeks and let you know if you made it. Because out of those 120 people, they were going to select 64 people, which is 32 guys and 32 girls. So I was like, okay, this is fun. Like, this is a fun experience, whatever. Well, 3 weeks later, I got the call that I was on. And I was still like, this is a joke. They just want me to come out so they can like knock me out. Like, and nobody knew what to expect. So nobody knew so we're supposed to come back for filming in September. And it was going to be, everybody's coming out mid-September or something. And I was still like, this is kind of a joke. But I was also like, this is a cool experience. Like, who gets to do this? Like, I'm definitely going.
Right. So
again, I showed up there. I was like, all these people are so fit. I've got nothing here. But when they started, I think, and it comes back to the mental side of things again, going to check out. So they had built this huge arena it's like a parking lot, like a big, I guess facility. They had built this big arena and they would film it at night. It was like this open air arena that they'd built out there. And in the day, they would bring us over, like, it was a single elimination competition. So you'd get paired up with somebody, whoever won moved on, whoever lost was kicked out.
See you later.
So, yeah. So they started, so now they were starting to explaining things. The day of our filming, with, everybody was filming on different days, whatever. They would bring us out, around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. They'd walk us around the set. They had different challenges, like that they built.
The crazy ones.
Yes, and nobody had ever seen any of this before. So
how do you do that?
So I started kind of realizing and, meeting these athletes and talking to them. They all had like, I'm a power lifter, or, I'm a let me think of what else was there. A CrossFitter, you know, whatever it was, they had, or strongmen. There were several strongmen where they do like all the heavy lifts and things and stuff. So everybody had, again, like this identity. They all, oh, this is what I do. And I started realizing, like, watching them see these new challenges. I saw the new challenges and I was like, this is cool. Like, let's figure this out. Some of them were Spartan Racers. I think at least two, several of them had like run 1 or 2. Some of them were a little more competitive in them. So I was like, okay, there's some people that I can kind of relate to. Because I was still like, I run. Yeah. I'm like not too scrawny because I have to be able to like do these. Some of these obstacles are more strength based. But I was still like, just kind of doing my thing. But seeing them see the challenges. So they would bring us out and some parts of it we could track. Because they were like, it's going to be on TV. We want you to look sort of good. But we're not going to like let you practice. But some parts of it, they were like, you know, feel what this feels like. You know, punch a wall, because at one point you have to be punching a wall and climbing up it, you know, different things. So, and watching everybody else, I could tell like everybody else is like freaking out and everybody else has their identity already built. And this is such like, it's way out of their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And I started realizing pretty quickly, like, this is new for everybody. Like, we're kind of all on the same playing field.
All on a level playing field.
Yes. And so.
And then you add the crowd in.
Yeah. So the crowd, the cameras, all the pyro stuff, and then The Rock is there, like all this. So, but it was really, from the beginning, you know, coming into it with like, this is crazy. This is stupid. Like, I don't know why I'm here. And then kind of realizing like, I mean, it's a neat experience. That was the way I viewed it the whole time was like, how cool. Like, I'm literally a nobody and I get to be here. And then realizing like, you know, nobody else knows what they're doing either. Like, we're all on the same boat.
Hey, everybody else is a nobody too.
Yeah. So it was really neat the whole time. Like, you know, so the first day I went, even then, I was paired up with this girl that I had found on Instagram. I kind of looked her up and she did American Ninja Warrior, which I would consider, like, I'm good at obstacles and stuff. So she did American Ninja Warrior. She did CrossFit and she also did the Spartan races. And I was like, she literally, like, I don't have, like, she's really good. Yeah, she's really good at everything that I'm sort of good at. So I was like, I don't really have a chance. This girl's like, she was shorter, but like all muscle.
Yeah, she was.
But we went to the challenge that they were going to have us do with this pole vaulting thing, where it was like these platforms. I think it was like 6-8 foot platforms. And you had this long pole, you had to plant it, and then you use your momentum to jump from one to the next. And so that afternoon they brought us out and they're like, everybody try this, you know, just try it to make sure you get the feel of it. And it was, what the challenge was you do like 5 down, and then you had to switch out the pole for a heavier one maybe, and then come back, plant the pole, and then climb up the pole to pull a ring down. Something crazy like that. And I was like, that's crazy. I've never pole vaulted before, but like, I figured it out, you know, and that was kind of, so as they had us, you know, jumping back and forth just from one to the other to kind of feel what it feels like. And, in the process of that, like, there were several people that were going to do that same challenge. So it was a group of, you know, 8 of us or something. One girl didn't make the jump. I don't know what happened. She ended up falling and like chipping her tooth. Oh. And so, and I think that got in the girl that I was going against. It kind of got in her head. And I was watching her. She was having a hard time figuring out how to get that momentum. So I was watching her. I was like, okay, like, this is going to be good. She's way more like, her resume, she's way better at this than I am. But like, when it comes to this specific challenge, like, I might actually have her. So then they go, you have to do all the hair and makeup. They get the arena ready. They get, you know, all the shots they want or whatever. And they bring you out just 2 at a time to do your challenge. Well, we were going to be, I think, later on in the night because they, you know, start at 8 or 9, go until like 1 or 2. So we were just kind of chilling in this athlete area. We got our hair and makeup done. They called both of us out and brought us out, and they said this girl had gone and talked to the psychologist that they have there and said that she was uncomfortable doing the challenge. And because of that, they were going to switch us to a different challenge. And this different challenge it ended up being the first challenge I did, where it's this A-frame.
You're pushing that.
This A-frame thing. You have to pull these poles out, these 100-pound posts. You have to pull 2 of them out. And then what it turns into is the one at the center turns into a tug-of-war. And I was like, I don't even have a chance. Like, this girl is way stronger than I am. Like, this is ridiculous. So I was really upset. I was like, here, like, I kind of figured it out, like, maybe I do have a chance.
Yeah.
And she went and, like, she was all like, I didn't know they were going to do it, but I was like, yeah, like, I was not happy with it.
Nobody knew what we were going to do.
Nobody knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
This is new for all of us. Like, you came here to do something new. You can't just say, oh, well, but not that. So I was a little upset, but I was like, all right, this is it. This is where I'm going to get knocked out. It's going to be the end of it. So they let us, they were like, hey, come feel what these poles feel like. Run up the sides. You kind of, because it's like there's foam that you run on first or something. It's like, okay, like this is it. But it turned out that first challenge, it was really, the whole experience was really neat because it was one of those, like, like I said, like, I'm here.
Yeah. How
cool is this? When we were waiting to start that challenge, you have like a starting point, and The Rock was like up on this little platform introducing each of the episodes, and we were sitting there waiting. Once the little pyro goes off is when you go. We're sitting there waiting, and he was on my side of the arena, and I like heard him because they're they've got their cameras up there, but I heard him saying something about like this girl and Kris Rugloski, and I was just kind of like, that's my name that he just said. Such a surreal experience the whole time of like, I'm here. And it ended up, we went into this challenge and I pulled those poles out way faster than she did, made it up to the top and got that top pole pulled almost all the way through before she even got to it. Because you had to pull 2 out before you went to the center. So I ended up winning that first challenge. It was just one of those like, well, I just won this. Like, what?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like I feel like the mentality kind of carried through the whole thing. Like, well, here I still am. Like, I was having a blast. Like, and that was, I guess, my first like competition kind of on that bigger playing field. And I think that's kind of what set the stage for a lot of things of like, how lucky am I to be here? Mm-hmm. How lucky am I to be doing this? And like, this is fun. And like, win or lose, like whatever happens, like I'm just happy to be here. Yeah. I'm just happy to be doing this. Yeah. And
it showed. You can see it. Like you're just like having a blast. Like,
this is fun.
Yeah. And where I noticed it was on the last part where you had to like bust through the deal and get that key and put it in and turn the key, like that part. You probably had no idea, but all the kids here at the house were like, whoa, so excited and getting ready to watch you do it and everything else. And it was that when you pulled it out at that like it, and I'm sure, I know how editing works and everything else too, and how tight it was. But oh my gosh, like that last part where that was almost like such a distinction of the belief and try, and there was no hesitation in what you did, and there was just enough hesitation in what she did that kept her from doing it. Yeah. Like it was so close, right? Yeah. And it was just the confident and just, like pushing through. It wasn't about whatever it was, just you stay with task and did it. Yeah. And it was just so much fun to watch.
It was,
I saw the mental part of it. Like I could see the mental part so much, and it showed up in the competition. Yeah, that was really cool. That's really cool.
So that's how that happened. And that was huge for me because I showed up feeling like I have no right to be here. What am I doing here? And then I did well. And I realized like I may not have all the background that these people have. I don't have, years of training and all of these, several of these people have done different sports. Like they're so versatile that, but I was like, you know what? Like mentally I'm in a good place and I like where I'm at mentally. And the more I've like read and met other athletes and like kind of tried to, I guess kind of dissect it some, I've realized like, just how important that is and how, I guess, different ways that I either consciously or subconsciously keep that alive. Like, so even now, like racing at a bigger level, everybody shows up and we're all, sizing each other up. We know who are the really fast people. We know like who's been winning lately, on this like national level. And every time I show up and I'm like, pretty sure I can like beat these people. These people are probably out of my reach, but it's like none of that really matters. Like to me, what matters is that I'm here. I get to race this. I get to race against these people. And like, and anytime, there's like the easy side of that where like, how cool is this? Like I get to be here. And then there's times mainly in the 100-milers where I hit a point where I'm like, this sucks. I hate this. Everything hurts. And there have been several times where I've, especially more recently, being more aware of it, where I've had to have that mental shift of like, okay, like force yourself to smile, like you're alive and you're doing this. You just run like 80 miles. We got another 20 to go. And like, you're doing it. You're doing it. You've done it before. You can do it again. And it's just been, it's been a huge, I guess the founder of Spartan wrote a book that I read, and his was basically like, everybody in life like faces difficulties, faces things you don't expect. Your car breaks down, you lose, whatever. And those things throw you off. Like, they're mental challenges. And what I found through racing, and what he's found like through all this, is when you choose to put those mental challenges in a race, in a fun setting, you put those challenges in and overcome them. It helps you in racing, it helps you in running, but it changes things in life as well. Mm-hmm. And I've I would say I have a pretty easy life, but it's also, I face my own things. And I feel like having the mentality that I've built and am building from running, I'll notice sometimes like, well, that really sucks. Like, something will happen, I'm like kind of screwed. And then you just like, you can't do anything about it. Like, so I'm just going to ride it out and do the best I can. And like, just kind of is what it is. And
you made a comment that I don't want to forget, right? That about your first ultra, right? And when you started to do your second one and what you did, that one of the things that you were talking about was like started interacting with other people and just kind of doing that part. So one thing, you occupied your mind, right, with something else, but you also did something that you're good at, which is like the friendship, the meeting, the fun, finding the fun in it again, and giving yourself something to focus on that's not the other, right? And I've heard it said, a friend of mine who went through Navy SEAL BUD/S training, right? And one of the things that he was saying about it was that whenever that part of your body's hurting so bad, you just have to turn that part of your body off. Like, you just have to like turn that part off. Just like, so, but if you concentrate on it, it's all you think about. It gets worse, right? Yes. And it's all you're focusing on is the trouble, the heart, and the only option is to quit, right? Yeah. And whenever you eliminate that by turn that part of the body off, and I can concentrate on helping or doing something better with somebody else, or encouraging somebody else, right? Pouring into somebody else on it. Like, that's when you aren't focusing on your troubles, right? Yeah. And you can, and the outcome is better. Yeah. Right? I mean, like, if the outcome becomes, it doesn't take away the fact that you're doing it, but it makes it look completely different. Yeah. Right? I had a guy that I started doing a little bit of sports psychology with in the earlier part of my career, right? Uh-huh. And I really wanted to, and I had been reading a bunch on different books on sports psychology and stuff. And I had a guy that was helping me out with it, right? And one of the things that he said is there was a comment that he made to me before I was getting ready to go into one of my bigger competitions, right? Yeah. And it's such a hard deal because like controlling the mind is such a hard thing at times, right? Yeah. But controlling the mind when what you're controlling affects the horse you're riding makes it like it doubles down, right? Yeah. Then it becomes your emotions. So like you can work on your brain, but your emotions and your feeling is run through the horse too, and then it makes the horse work a certain way too, right? Yeah. So it like if you don't hide it or if you don't work on it, right? Yeah. It comes out no matter what, right? So one of the things that he said before we got going into a competition was he said, "Unleash your grace." Gave me a whole different perspective, right? Yeah. Because I want to be aggressive. Like my go-to is like hard aggressive. And that doesn't work on every horse. There's a couple horses that you can do that with. Yeah. And I worked well with those. But the ones like I've got a couple now. One of my favorite ones right now, and I think he's turning into slowly one of the most favorite horses ever. Yeah. Right? But he will internalize everything bad thought I have. Right? He takes and turns it upon himself. Right? And earlier in my career, I never gave a thought of what they thought. I could care less what they thought. Right? Yeah. But in order to unleash your grace, you have to understand what grace is. Mm-hmm. Right? And grace is not just being nice. Yeah. Right? Grace it's unearned favor. Yeah. Right? You don't deserve it. Yeah. Right? It's not something you worked for, you did, nor do you even in the slightest bit deserve that grace, right? but it's given to you anyhow.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're racing or you're going and it's, you're a competitor, whoever it is, right, that it's somebody else that you're lapping or whatever else, that you give the 2 seconds to encourage or to whatever, they didn't earn it. They're way behind you, right? They're not where you're at. They didn't earn any of it, but you give it. Yeah. Right. And when you're volunteering afterwards, that you're giving it. Yeah. And you see that whenever you're doing it and you're competing. I like to see it because I'm watching you smile. Right. Yeah. And when you are, it's almost like you're giving it to yourself. Yeah. Right. You're like, I didn't earn it, don't deserve it. And it's what you see when you see somebody go out there and compete recklessly. Yeah. Right? Where you compete with no inhibitions. You're not sitting there worried about where the podium is or where you're at in the standings. It's just like, hot dog, I'm here again. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it? Right? Yeah. It's a cool place.
Yeah. And I haven't heard it said that way, but I really like that because that's a good way. Like, I feel like a lot of people on the start line have this pressure of like, I did well previously, I need to do well here. Or I did terrible previously, I need to do well here. Whatever it is.
I got something to prove. Yes, I got to prove.
None of that. So you're right. It is giving yourself that allowance to, no matter what's happened in the past, today you get to show up. You get to run your best for today. Mm-hmm. That may not be your best last week. It may not be, but it's your best for today. And whatever that is, like, that's your race.
Yeah. It's a cornerstone of coaching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And definitely, I mean, in these races, there's a lot of mistakes to be made. And I even, the Spartan has their national series. So they have basically 5 races throughout the year that they put a bigger cash payout on. And it draws like the big competition. So they have this series. With each series, through your placement, you earn points. And at the end of this series, based on your points, not only are you doing well in these races and getting money, but based on how you do throughout the series, you can get bigger money at the end. So I went and did the first one. I'd done one last year as my very first one. This is my first. I'm going to do the whole series this year. So showed up to the one. It was early March, I guess, last month. And we went out hot. Everybody's running fast. Like, it's the first race of the year. Nobody really knows what everybody's been doing, training over the winter, So a big variable for me in these races is the spear throw. They have the spear throw. You have to throw it and hit a target. It has to stick. If it does, and it's one of those, like, spear throwing, like, is a skill, but it's also like
intuition. Your
rope can be messed up. Your spirit, like, there's so many variables to it. So, like, I'm not terrible at it, but I'm not like 100% like good at it. So it's one of those things that it's one of, like, every time I come to it, I'm like, could get it, I could not. Like, so if you miss it, you have to go do 30 burpees. Yeah. And I came into it, there were a couple of obstacles before it, and I had racked up some time on the obstacles. I'd been passing up some of these people. I came into this spear throw at with 3rd place, I think, with the girl that was currently in 3rd place. I was like 3rd, 4th place. I came up to it, and I was like, I heard that one of the, like, they have rabbits that are following us and, like, filming this. I heard them say, like, Kris in 4th, because I didn't really realize where I was. I'd passed some people on obstacles. I was like, man, that's cool. So I, like, took a second to breathe, threw the spear, didn't hit. So if you don't hit, you got to go do 30 burpees. I was like, dang it.
One shot.
Oh. One try. If you don't get it. And that's, everything was Spartan. One try. If you don't get it, there's either a penalty loop where you have to, like, run an extra loop, or you got to go do 30 burpees. So I was like, I was it was one of those, like, dang it, I blew it. Like, I was in a good position here. Mm-hmm. Like, we're halfway through the race. Really, I think almost over halfway through the race. But I was like, gotta go to 30 burpees. So, like, there's 0 point in, again, like, giving that grace. Like, well, I failed, but, like, I can't change it now,
Right.
So I went and knocked out the burpees. Well, right after I went into it, another girl that's at the top, she's won world champion, or she's placed in world champions in the past. Like, she's been at the top of the field for a long time. Everyone knows who she is. She came in and she missed the spear and came over and started doing burpees with me. And then part of it was like, good, I'm not alone. Felt bad for her. She's really nice, whatever. But knocked out the burpees, ran and finished, and I ended up passing up a girl, and I finished just in 5th place. I passed her up, like, right in the last couple obstacles at the end. Because the burpees, like, suck. I started out, I was like, my calves are cramping, like, but I was like, it's not over yet. Gotta keep going, So, like, I don't know, like, allowing that failure, but not letting it define you, almost. Like, so I was like, I can still run a strong race. I didn't know where I was placement-wise anymore, because, girls come and gone. Some people were doing burpees, whatever. But as I got closer to the end, they had a couple obstacles at the end, and I saw this girl that I'd kind of seen through some of the obstacles and stuff. I knew she wasn't too far ahead of me. A lot of it was strength-based stuff at the end, and I'm stronger than some of the field there. So I was like, I'm gonna give it my all here at the end. And I ended up passing her. They have like a hoist where they have a sandbag with a pulley up like 20 feet, and you have to use that pulley to bring the sandbag all the way up and then lower it down. So I came into that as she was still working on it. I came in and started pulling. She left, and I left that obstacle like right after. I'd like built a bunch of ground, and then there's like this A-frame net that kind of goes up and over. It's a big one that they have right at the finish. And I started climbing that about at the same time as her, ended up coming off of it and finished. I think I beat her about like 1 second. But it was one of those like, and the girl that I'd been doing burpees with, that's like top of the field, like, not even like those things get in your head. Those things can ruin your race. She ended up coming in, I think 7th or 8th or something. But it was one of those like, I from what I know of her, she does tend to put a lot of pressure on herself. And I've seen that. And seen her finish like dejected and like not having a race.
Internalizing it.
Yes.
Right?
And I realized like so much like, and even seeing, everybody then posts on Instagram kind of like their race recap.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. And then you
and
relive it all week.
Seeing all the race recaps where all these racers will be like, this is how my race went and whatever. And reading all those, you see like, even if these people like had a decently good race, it wasn't where I don't even want to put that out there. Like, no. I was hoping to do better. Finishing in 5th though was huge for me.
Right.
With a Miss Spear, like I couldn't be happy with it. So would I tell a handful of friends like I was kind of disappointing, like, I like was so close, but I missed the Spear, But like putting that out as my summary to me, like again, kind of a mental game for me, but also on others. Like I don't want anybody to know that like that got in my head at all.
So I'll tell you something that's really important, right? When it comes to the mental game of competition, right? Yeah. Something that I do with my non-pros is that when they come out of the show pen, right? When they come out of the experience, when you're out of it right then and there, right? Yeah. I never tell them, we never talk about all of the bad things, right? When you walk out of that, you're done with the competition. It's praise, right? Everything, you'll find everything. If it was at least you wore a really nice shirt, I'm going to tell you how damn nice that shirt is, right? Yeah. Because what the feeling you leave that competition with is the one you will take into the next competition, right? Whatever you're leaving there, that competition with, you will take with you the next time you walk into that pen, the next time you walk into that arena, or the next time you line up for the race, right? It's what you're going to bring with you. So what I want as a coach, right, for you to leave that pen with was accomplishment, right? Did something good. The other thing is really hard because the way we do it in reining, right, is it is a maneuver judged. Then you move to the next maneuver and you're judged. And the next maneuver, you're judged. And when you move to your next maneuver, that, if you had a bad maneuver, right, it theoretically at least, in the judging, you're not supposed to bring that with you. Yeah. Right? So that he's judging your next maneuver completely independently. Right? It's the way it's supposed to be judged. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with yours, right? Once you walk away from that, you're on your time and you're still on course, right? Yeah. If you bring that and drag that baggage with you to the next, 4 or 5 more obstacles, it's going to affect you, right? So self-talk is really, really important, right? And it's not just self-talk, but how you talk to yourself is really important, right? There's certain things that the brain doesn't hear, right? The brain doesn't hear the word don't or don't. So when you're saying don't mess up, your brain hears mess up, right? It does hear whenever you're talking positive, right? So reframing the way you say it, right? So when you're running your course and you're coming up on the spear throw, you want to go, I love the spear throw. This is my event. This is my new event. This is my favorite one. I can't wait. I hope they have 3 spear throws in this one, right? Because this is what I do. This is what I love, right? Yeah. When I'm training a horse to do a lead change, right? It was one of the harder things that I had to learn how to train a horse to do. Yeah. And I would do it and I was like, I just suck at teaching the lead change. I'm not good at teaching the lead change. That's all I could think about. When I started to go, you know what? This is the part I like. Yeah. This is what I'm good at. I like doing, and I didn't, right?
Yeah.
But I said it to myself enough to where I believed that I was good at doing the lead change. And when I did it with a different feel, right? I did it with a, all right, so this is what I'm good at, right? This is what I'm going to do. And I would take that feeling with me when I go and do it. It didn't create the anxiety. It did, because most of the time when you're in competition, right, and you're doing something like running, one of the things that happens when your adrenaline starts to kick in, it's one thing to be running and be exhausted, right? But it's another deal when your adrenaline kicks in. When your adrenaline starts to kick in, or apprehension, or you start to have that, more of your blood flow leaves your extremities and goes to your big muscle, right? Yeah. So when you do, you lose dexterity in your hands, right? So when you're trying to do something like monkey bars, it's not so detrimental. Yeah. But when you're trying to do something like a spear throw, where you have to have dexterity in your aim, you have to have that there. Anxiety builds up, and it makes it even more difficult, right? Yeah. It'll make it difficult on the net, crawling over the net, because you got to have hand placement. It's not the physical part of going over the net. It's the actually missing a step, and that's almost like crushing. You miss 2 steps, and it's like, it's all gone, right? Yeah. It's being able to run into it and mindlessly going, I can run this net at full speed, right? And when you do it like that, with that mindset, you're going to fly through it. That's the difference, right? Yeah. So when you're coming to it, the next thing you do when you come to that spear throw is, I'm good at this. I'm good like this spear. I'm a spear chunking fool, right? And come in it with that, happiness of doing it. Yeah. At least you're not going to lose the dexterity in your fingers when you go to do it. Yeah. Because of thinking that don't mess up, don't screw this up. At least hit the wall. All you're doing is you're giving yourself more and more play and more room to not to be, worrying more about it, right?
That's actually I have found the one thing that does help me hit the spear is when I'm holding the spear and I'm getting ready to aim. Like, I kind of know where to hold the spear and whatever, but I found what helps the most is like saying in my brain, straight at the target, because it's really easy. A lot of people tend to like pull their arm back to throw, and then when they come forward, they're tilting it either to the one side, to up, down, whatever. So I'll tell myself, I'll look at it and I'll say straight at the target, and that helps my hand throw straight at the target. So I've got some of that mental time, but I definitely come into it with a bit of apprehension. But again, like, I do give myself grace coming into it, thinking, all right, I can do this. If I don't, it's fine. But I am going to change that, actually. Yeah. I'm going to get more eager
to I can't get to that one, right? This is it. It changes the way you do it, right? It's and that's what causes it. That's what causes that problem, right? Is the apprehension of, I miss this, right? And I was talking to, I think it was one of my favorite interviews was Bill Rogers. And he was a pro golfer, right? Okay. Like PGA Golfer of the Year in 1981, right? Like an outstanding golfer. And so you imagine accuracy in a swing free was his thing. That is a thing for a golfer, right? He has to have that. And how he got himself into that, and the eagerness in what he was doing when he was competing was different, right? Being excited to do it. And when it changed and it wasn't exciting, but he was thinking about don't mess up, it changed his whole game, right? It made everything different. And just having that mindset of, that was a big opener for me, because I would say, he's going to do this, I'm going to do that. Or I'm setting up for a lead change in the competition, and I got to get him here. I got to get ahead of him, because if he does it, I'm going to be prepared for what he's going to do wrong, right? Yeah. Instead of thinking like pick up, move over, go. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Just simplifying it and making it with like one thing I need to focus on. That's it. Yeah. Center of the target, straight on, center of the target, right? Yeah. If you're a shooter, right? In life and death and in competition. Yeah. One of the things that they say is front sight, right? The sight, it's not, and you don't even focus on trying to get your back sight in the front sight and taking all that time. It's front sight, because if you're doing it and you're staring at the front sight, you're going to line up the back sight, right? So your front sight is what you're looking at, and you're saying to yourself, it's target, right? Yeah. Not going, I got all this area. Don't hit the field out there, right? Yeah. Like you're aiming at the field, right?
Yep. Because, where your mind goes is where your attention goes.
Yeah. So, and that's why I think, like, one of the things that was so fun to watch was that you hadn't competed before.
Yeah.
Right? So you had no apprehension of competing. And when you went to go to compete, it was just like, I get to do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So remembering that.
Yeah.
As you get more bigger races, bigger things to do, like that is something that you have to keep.
Yeah.
You have to keep, right? Yeah. I experienced that later in my career where I was like, oh my God, trying to keep what I had, right? Yeah. As I got older, you know, and you saw frustration on me in horses and stuff. And there was times where where I got frustrated was when I didn't have the talent in the horses I was riding to match the talent of what I had. Yeah. That's so frustrating, right? Because, and there was me not giving grace to them in what I was doing. It was like, it was almost like I felt like I could make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. And I just realized I couldn't, right? Yeah. And that's a hard thing to do, right? It's a hard thing to give that part up. If I have ridden silk purses and I've done it well with those, right? Yeah. But when I didn't have a silk purse, man, it made it really, really difficult because I was trying to make one out of it. Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to meet them where they're at.
Oh my God. Yeah. And finding the joy in that too, right? So it was almost like reteaching myself how to find the joy in I always had to go back to the part of going like, so I'm riding a horse every day. Like, what are you complaining about? Yeah. Who are you complaining about what? You know, like, really? Oh, poor Todd. He just gets to ride horses all day long, Yeah. It's kind of silly. You kind of get, so you can't, whenever you get to that point, you got to keep perspective. Perspective is huge.
Perspective is everything.
It is. It is. It really is everything. So what's your next races? What's this year going to, so I know you're doing like a lot of like a series now?
Yes. I'm doing several series. So
really?
Yes. Basically, so I'm doing the Spartan series. My next Spartan series race is going to be in May. And those are, I guess the first two are like that 6 mile middle distance. And then the last three are going to be the half marathon distance, basically. So I have that one in May. I'm doing another race brand in the obstacle course racing, but it's a smaller one, but it's really well run, which is why I like racing them. It's Savage Race, and they're kind of more out on the east, southeast, just all over the East Coast. They're doing a 5 race series, and the same idea where based on how you do in those 5 races, at the end there's a bigger payout. So the next one of those is beginning of May. So I've got that one, and then Spartan. Next weekend, I actually have, before the other series that I'm doing is over the summer is a series of 100 milers. They've kind of put together, they call it the Grand Slam of Ultra Running. Whoa. And it's they've kind of like identified 5 of like the oldest kind of like foundational 100 milers in the US. And if you do 4 out of 5 of those within a summer, they call it like, it's basically 100 miler a month for, basically over 4 months. We call it like the Grand Slam of Ultra Running. There's kind of like it's really just an extra trophy at the end. But I was like,
you're not going to have feet cool when you're done.
I have to still have 2 of them. So that's
a shout out to your shoe sponsor. Who's your shoe sponsor?
Ultra Shoes.
All right.
Ultra Shoes taking care of me. And they actually are sponsoring me this year. So
yeah, I saw that.
Super excited about that.
And so hold on real quick, because I want to ask about that. So it looked like those shoes are like, what do you call it? So now for all of you runners out there, I ride horses all day long. I don't know all the different types of shoes, and I'm not all into that kind of stuff. But I did notice that it was almost like the shoe really was a little more like a footprint of a person, like a footprint, right?
So there's kind of 2 different trains of thoughts in running. There's a minimalist approach, and then there's kind of more of a like the shoe is the answer for everything. The minimalist is kind of like everybody's built differently, pronating, supinating, all that kind of thing, but kind of the idea of like your foot is a fundamental part of your body. Yeah. And so to just compensate for everybody's different style of running by building a shoe that like accommodates that is actually kind of a disservice to your foot, because it just kind of like it basically like kind of allows you to continue that like it almost like handicaps you even further, where you're like pronating, where you're running on the inside of your feet. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that's bad. So let's prop up the inside, give you a bunch of heel support or arch support or whatever. So then you can like run with this perfect stride, which isn't really real. Like, so the Ultra basically says like your foot can kind of run however it does. Your body's built to run. And the more that you strengthen your feet and all the different nerves and everything that's in your feet, kind of more of a the idea of like running barefoot, like humans used to run mostly barefoot, and like your feet are actually meant to be fine that way. So Ultra takes an approach of, instead of a common problem with runners is where their heel strike, where you land on your heel first and then the rest of your foot. And that's really bad for your entire leg chain, because it's basically like putting a shock all the way through your joints. So a lot of shoe brands will go, let's put some extra padding on your heels so that when you land, it doesn't hurt your joints as much. Where it's like the landing wasn't the problem, it's the fact that you're landing that way. Like,
it's like, well, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do this.
Yeah. So that's where Ultra's two big things are. It's a 0 drop from your heel to your toe. So instead of having that prop up on your heel, giving your heel extra cushion, it's like give your heel less cushion and teach yourself to run on the mid part of your foot. Like with extra cushion, you're like, so with less cushion, your foot is getting more feedback from the ground. You're actually able to like run kind of like your feet are doing the work instead of your shoes doing the work for you. And then their other big thing is a wide toe box, where a lot of shoes kind of have that, like they narrow at the toe. Kind of because it looks better. I'm not really sure what the reason behind that was in the first place. But their thing is like your toes are like they help with balance. They help again with feedback to your feet.
Some movement
your
to them.
toes should be able to like spread out naturally. So they have like uncommonly large toe boxes where it's almost like a square shaped toe.
Do you notice a difference in running those shoes?
100%. I tried running in like normal shoes, and I had issues running. I was still learning how to run, and that didn't help anything.
Well, does it mean anything?
It hurt my toes a bunch. Like,
so does that have anything to do with the fact that the Rugloskis all went barefoot for like half their lives?
So in the minimalist shoe movement, whatever, they say like if you've been wearing regular shoes for a long time, it can be hard to adapt to the more minimalist. And it's been very easy for me to adapt to, because I went barefoot a lot. As a child.
Like, so her brother would run over here barefoot, down like a mile and a half down the road over here, and they like all run around barefoot. So one of the things I did, I went and tried a pair of those type of shoes out before, and they were uncomfortable for about 2 days.
Yep.
And then they got really comfortable. Like, I really liked them. Because it made so what I noticed was that where I was compensating and allowing certain tendons and ligaments in my feet to contract and hold up really tight, it allowed for me to stretch those out. And that was what was uncomfortable. And until it got comfortable, it got really comfortable. And I do like mine. Now, I don't have those shoes, but I've had another pair that were the same concept. Yeah. And I really like them. I really do.
It takes a little while because, when your heels are jacked up like that. Yep.
But you know what? You have to adjust to whether all of a sudden you put a new arch in your shoe in order to get that stretched out. Same thing.
But it's normally more, instead of making your body work more, it's making your body work less. So it's like, oh, this is really comfortable. And then later on when your body, I'd say it's like, a lot of these shoes, it's like the whole idea of like when you put your broken arm or something in a cast, your muscles start to, whatever that word is, where they like
atrophy or
yes. So contract. If you don't make your muscles work, they naturally atrophy. So when you put your shoe like in this, or your foot in this big padded shoe, that feels great. But give it a couple weeks, running on that, and all like your legs, your muscles aren't working. So then it ends up, they say most running problems are not actually running problems, are shoe problems, because your shoes are. That's funny. And that's a different train of thought. Like, not everybody is on that train, but to me, like, that logically just makes so much sense. And I've experienced it. So.
My kids, I had those shoes, and the ones that I had separate toes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And my kids were so embarrassed that I wore them. They're like, Dad, put some you look goofy with those. And but I wore them anyhow. I think it's partly my job is to embarrass my kids. So I do that quite a bit.
Take that seriously.
Yes, I do. So you're running those in.
That's 100 milers.
So the 100 miler, I've got that is hard to grasp, right? So just the idea of most people, it's a lifetime accomplishment to have run a marathon, and you're running 100 miler. So like, what mile becomes the hardest in that? Like, I can't even comprehend it.
I would, it kind of comes and goes. And goes.
Have you had a race, like a 100-mile or a 50-mile race where you felt great the whole way?
Yes.
Really?
The last, I guess the last 3 or 4. So I say I felt great the whole way, but I think also a lot of it is back to like I'm getting mentally stronger. And with the coming and going, like knowing that it's going to be temporary and I'll move past it. But again, like your mind is powerful, and the mentally knowing I can accomplish it, and mentally also preparing myself that it's going to suck, it's going to hurt, allows me to physically like kind of be able to like handle it more. But I would say up to like at 80 miles is where it gets harder and harder to kind of like dismiss the fact that you've been running for hours and hours and miles and miles. And I would say 80 miles is kind of the point where I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to be done. Like, yeah. 20, but I will say
20 more miles. I can't even imagine just running that through my head. Oh, I only got 20 more miles.
The last several ones that I've done, I've thought to myself at 70, 80 miles, like, my body feels fine. And it's almost more of like an exhaustion of like, I'm just tired of running at this point. Like, I just want to be done.
How many hours does it take you to run 100 miles?
It depends. Every course is different. Trails are different. The fastest one I've done, I've done several that are like 24 hours. The fastest one I did was just under 23 hours. And then the others have been 24 hours, but there's like built-in break points. So it's been 17 hours of running out of those 24. So it's technically 24 hours, but also technically 17 hours of running.
Wow.
So those are kind of like my faster, flatter ones.
That's got to be a mental push.
Longest it took me was 45 hours in the mountains of Wyoming with 30,000 feet of elevation gain.
Holy smack.
And it was 111 miles. And that one was tough. It was my favorite one. So.
Really?
Yeah. I always say like my favorite one is the most recent one I did. Like I'm still on that high. But I think this is one that I'll look back on and like it was the most challenging thing I've ever done.
God, just not stopping has got to be the most incredible.
Now I say, not stopping is, I hike up hills. You stop, they have aid stations like every 5 to 10 miles. So you'll stop and eat food, but it is like a constant push. You don't like stop and take a nap. Well, I have stopped and taken naps, but you don't stop for a period of time. So.
Wow. That's impressive, Christiana. Kris.
That the name change has been one of those things like I'm still Christiana, but like that doesn't sound like me. Like that's like too like feminine. Not too feminine, it's like it's so fancy and like I'm just Kris. Like I just run. Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm like
I just can't get the young 18-year-old Christiana out of it. It's like I used to give your sister such a hard time calling her Susanna.
That's some fun names.
Yeah. Well, cool. This is really fun. I'm glad. I love talking about the mental push on that kind of stuff, and I think you getting an opportunity to coach too, like in the gym and working in the gym. That's got to be bringing awareness to your own. Like it is forcing you to acknowledge it. Most people don't get the opportunity at a high level to compete at a high level, because a lot of them don't see it as opportunity to coach at that level or coaching at the same time too, right? To coach because, like I don't have time for that. I'm too busy about worrying about myself or what accomplishment I've got to do or whatever else. But it makes you realize that, getting in there and like I can't imagine your gym's got to be full of the, young mom who's, going through body changes and trying to be a good mom at the same time, but not serving herself anymore and serving the family. And I mean, that's a difficult place for all women, right? And it's a place where most women are the hardest on themselves, right? And now you're hard on yourself and then you're not looking like I used to or whatever else. And you're getting to actually give a lot of grace in that area, right? And being able to coach someone through that, find the small accomplishments in that to give them accomplishments in the other parts.
Oh, it's been huge. And seeing people, I mean, things like, moving up in a weight or, doing these box jumps.
Small things, right?
Small things where I recognize it now, and I think it's made me more aware of like my mentality is where I can see. I was like, they're capable of that, and they kind of want to know that they are, but they're not sure. And it's really cool to be able to be the person like, hey, grab one weight heavier than that. And I always say like, I'm really big on like, you know, go at your own pace. Like I never want to like push people into something they're not ready for. So a lot of times I'll go and grab the weight and I'll put it next to them, you know, in the middle of this, you know, whatever set they're doing. I'll be like, hey, I think you can use this weight. Try it. Especially if they're like, oh, no, like, just try it. Try it for a round or two. If you want to, you can do like half with this weight, half with the lighter weight. Like, and then you see them start doing it, and it builds that little confidence. Or like, you know, the box jumps, like, step on it, jump next to it. Like, give yourself the chance to succeed. Give yourself the chance to like challenge yourself and accomplish something. Like,
I think that's something
really
that's
cool.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important about learning how like some of the smaller things like kipping and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's a cheating way of doing a pull up or whatever else. Like, hey, dude, it's a start, you know. And if that's what we got to do before we do a strict, I mean, like, then do what you got to do. If you got to do jumping pull ups, do jumping pull ups. Who cares?
Or push ups on your knees.
Yeah, like, whatever.
I got into an older gentleman there said something about push-ups on your knees or girl push-ups. And I did not take that very well. I was like, no, it's a push-up. It's a, what is it? It's a modification to a push-up. There's zero gender. Like, and I don't know, that was kind of an aside, but even just the modification of push-ups in general, like it's no less, it's no better. Like I do knee push-ups when I'm doing a lot of push-ups and I start getting tired, or when I'm using a 20-pound vest, like whatever it is, like drop down, work within your range.
Hey, you should just look at him next time and go, half a marathon's a girl distance. Why don't you do 100? That's an old man distance. Why don't you do the young distance, you know, of 100 or something? And so, but you know what? I think that's one way that others, it's funny, old school push is like degrading push. Macho push. And I think that, you know, that's trying to fit the mindset of we all fit in the same deal. But at the same time, you know,
everybody's in a different place.
Everybody's in a different place, and we're there for a different purpose, right? That's a little bit of that grace, right? That's a little bit of that, hey, you know, it's getting that part. Knee push-ups are the beginning place for full push-ups on your toes, you know, and it's the beginning place for a plank is the beginning place for your first push-up. And like all that stuff builds. You start somewhere, right? And there's no shame in starting somewhere.
There's nothing less than...
the only shame is not attempting, right? The only shame that you have is not... I used to tell... when we first started, me and Tommy first started doing CrossFit, which I didn't last very long in CrossFit. I love jiu-jitsu, and that's my challenge, right? I love doing that, right? And that is my fitness. It doesn't involve any running at all. But when we first started and we started doing it, you know, it was, you know, all we have to do is get in the parking lot. Like if I'm in the parking lot, like, no, I'm not going to let anybody see me drive off. But all I got to do is I got to get in the parking lot. All I got to do is show up. Showing up is half the battle. I get the showing up, and especially in an environment like that, what's the biggest thing about the biggest craze about what's going on in this fitness and the way that it's done is creating tribes, right? And that tribe is not a tribe of demeaning and pushing everybody else down. It's a tribe of people going and encouraging, like, just show up. Who cares, right? No, we've all been to wherever you're at. And anything else, I look at somebody that is starting out, you know, 100 pounds different weight where I'm at. I'm like, I got all the feelings for you in the world because I don't want to be there. And that is, it takes more guts and determination from where you're at than it is from mine. Like yours is a bigger accomplishment than mine. And they don't see it that way, right? I
see that we have a lot of even, you know, older people that will come in. And to me, that is like...
Oh, you roll your eyes.
No, but just to see them show up every day, and this is the big challenge in their life, is showing up. And it blows my mind to see the amount of determination and what they like. I guess it's putting them pushing themselves out of their comfort zone of like just showing up with all these young people that are like having an easy time with this. They're doing more for their mentality and for their future than like anybody else that's like, oh, this is easy, you know?
Right.
So it's really, that's one of my favorite things is seeing older people, less fit people show up, take it seriously, and from where they're at, work hard. Like,
start the
and
change.
then you get to see them progress some. And it nothing makes me happier than seeing people that start at about 0. And now they're, able, their movement patterns get better. They start gaining confidence, like, every time. I'm like, this is what it's about. Like, because, I always feel a little bit like I've been there. Like, and it's slightly different, but then the new person, the person that doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's something that's lost on the guy that was the jock through school, right?
Yeah.
That, was just, he's always been there. He's been something, I mean, even when you started doing it at 14, 14 to 19 seems like, forever, but in reality it's not.
Yeah.
But it is like all of your life from what you think at that point.
Yeah.
That you just can't comprehend somebody starting from being out of shape to get back into shape. And it's just a bigger step, right? Yeah. And it bleeds into everything else. You can't not let the rest of your life start to realize that these challenges start to embrace the challenges of everything else. Yeah. You don't feel conquered by it all. Yeah. So cool. That's the fun part about coaching. Yeah. Right? That adds longevity to your career. Yeah. By the way, it really will. Because, you're on top of everything right now, and you're doing, and you're competitive, and you're playing at the game at the, at a high level. Yeah. And finding the joy in that, and 15 years from now, takes a little bit of construct, right? It takes a little bit of work to find that later on. And you can, when you find that, you're not just doing it for yourself, but you get to pour into others. Yeah. Yeah. That's good to be fun. So cool. I like hearing that you're doing that on the race course too. That you're like, hey, and making friends and finding the joy in it. Right?
I love it.
Cool. Man, this is fun. Well, good. Fun. I'm glad you came and did this. I'm glad you got to come into town for your brother and stuff. That's gotta be fun. Congratulations to him. Yes. That's cool. Cool. Well, next time you're in town, you have to come back by again and give me some updates on how you're doing with your races and stuff. Yeah. So cool. Yeah.
It's a lot happening, so.
Cool. Any other shout outs? I'll give you the opportunity to shout out to your sponsors and who's helping. And
definitely Grit Fitness. They've helped me become who I am as a person. The shoes, and then Hyperwear is a kind of my workout equipment brand that started supporting me, and really, just good people and with good products. And
it's cool to support products that you believe in, right?
Yes. And that's been, I've been doing this at a fairly, at a higher level, not this level, but, at a decent level for about 3 years now. And I've had a hard time. Like, I'm not just going to push something that just because they want to, hey, shout out this and we'll help you. I'm like, I don't even like your stuff. So it's really neat now to be at a level of I can kind of now that's somebody I want to work with. That's somebody I want to work with. And so, really grateful for some of those things.
It's cool when you got an integrity in what you're doing, right? And then you get to take that and represent stuff that you believe in, right? Yeah. That's the same thing with me. I was talking to somebody the other day about feed, right? And, they're like, oh, yeah. Well, I forgot you're a Purina guy. I was like, I have been for 20 years. It's not something new, right? Yeah. I've fed that for my entire career. Yeah. Why? Because it works. Yeah. And they get the research and they put into me as much as they put into them. And it's been a mutual relationship for a long time, and that makes a difference, right? Those are the ones, Joe, if they have any kind of, anything behind what they're doing business-wise and everything else too, they'll be around the same time as you, or, the length of time that you're around. Yeah. So that's good stuff too. Yeah. So, all right. We'll talk to you later, Christiana.
All right. Thank you.
You bet.